this is a very, very college football story, while also being a business of college football story, as Tuesday night, UNLV starting quarterback Matthew Sluka said on Twitter, I committed to UNLV based on certain representations that were made to me, which were not upheld after I enrolled. Despite discussions, it became clear that these commitments would not be fulfilled in the future. I wish my teammates the best of luck this season and hope for the continued success of this program. The Rebels are 3-0 for the first time since 1984. The Rebels are a true contender for the college football playoff, as they are a championship contender in the Mountain West. And now your starting quarterback, who just arrived from Holy Cross, is opting out. He is opting out, and he is preserving his eligibility. So we presume he can either take his talents elsewhere or, I guess, renegotiate with UNLV. Danny, this is modern college football for you, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. Man, when you saw this report, I knew the takes would come flying in, because there's a lot of people that get very emotional about this, how this is ruining the game. And then, of course, it's, well, who is ruining the game? Is it this player who is, making this case that he hasn't been given what he's promised? Is it UNLV for apparently verbally promising something and not paying of it and not paying on the promise? I think it's all of it. That's what I want to make clear, is that this is not one person's fault. This is a system which is severely broken and flawed and needs to be fixed, or else we are going to see this happen a lot more. And we already have seen this somewhat, but not in the middle of a season the way we are now, with a team that looks really good and looks potentially like they could claim a spot from the group of 5 for the college football playoff. And the one thing that I do believe from people is there are some people that say, man, this bums me out for college football. I would agree with them. And so, like, that's the first thing, like the disclaimer I want to say, is that this does kind of bum me out that we have this type of drama unfolding in the first month of the college football season.
Totally. When I saw this, I had heard about this story like last night. I was like, all right, let's see if they really go through with it. And it appears that both sides kind of try to get out ahead of this thing a little bit. Sluka had the tweet, and then a lot of UNLV adjacent media were coming with the narrative that Sluka had hit him up for additional money. And I'm like, I don't know what makes sense to me, what doesn't make sense to me. I mean, like, so I kind of will play like clear and unclear in my notes, right? Like, what was clear, he didn't get what he was expecting to get. Unclear, was that expectation based on a contract, or was there some sort of like non-contractual assurance given to him? Because remember, Sluka was one of 2 transfers that UNLV brought in. It was Sluka, and it was also Haj Malik Williams, who's a much better passer than Sluka. Sluka is more of a runner, although I don't think we realized how bad of a passer that Sluka actually was until we saw him play so far this year. But nonetheless, he won the job, right? It was also clear that if UNLV paid him what was promised in the contract, and they were willing to leak some of the stuff they leaked, they would also leak the contract and say, hey, here's the deal. Here's what got paid. Even though, of course, the counter to that would be, well, then you're kind of letting the market know what you pay for a starter. But I think it's generally pretty standard around G5. I texted around to like multiple G5 personnel guys this morning. They're like, yeah, we pay our guy 40. We pay our guy 50. Like they kind of speculated like maybe Boise and Memphis pay more because they have some interesting NIL connections. And UNLV does too, a little bit, right? The Fertitta family is involved there. But neither of the quarterbacks they brought in my opinion, and in the opinion of the people that I spoke with, would demand like crazy money to go to UNLV. So that was I was like, or what happened if, like, what if there is a contract? Then Sluka's side would leak that and say, hey, here's our deal. Here's what's been paid. So I saw Rob Sluka, Matt Sluka's brother, on Twitter, tweeting about it. I reached out. I was like, hey, man, we run the #1 college football podcast in the country. You want to come on and give your side? He called me. He's like, hey, I've got a meeting. I can't come on, but I got some time for you. And he said, look, we went out there in February. They made representations. It was one guy in particular. He didn't want to name the guy. Sluka is represented, I believe, by Equity. They put out a tweet in January saying that they represented him. So that would have been, before, because he was a summer enrollee. And it was like, hey, like, this is what they said he would get. I was like, well, dude, just leak the contract, right? Like that would look good for your side. He's like, well, I was like, oh, so you guys don't have an actual deal.
Mm.
And he's like, and he kind of started hemming and hawing a little bit. And I was like, let me put some pieces together here for you. Do you not have an actual deal because it's not really legal to condition an NIL contract based on you winning the starting job? Right? Because clearly, if you're UNLV and they're NIL people, you would not put in a contract, because it would be illegal per current NIL rules, that you only get this amount of money if you win the starting gig, which he did win the starting gig. So according to his brother, and after that, like the combo kind of, it didn't go sideways, but I asked some more questions like, so why would you accept a verbal only offer if what you're telling me about these big time offers you had from major P5 and G5 schools is real? Wouldn't you sign with one of those schools and take a written offer and guaranteed money? And then he said, I'm going to defer like all future questions to Marcus, who is his agent with Equity. But now we have to go on the air. Marcus wants to come on the show and explain. Certainly can. But as I understand it now, the only thing he's been paid is the stipend, according to his brother, is the stipend that UNLV offers to all athletes. But they don't have, per my understanding and per Rob's representation, a contract to enforce against UNLV. So to me, both sides look bad here. If UNLV made these verbal representations that, hey, if you win the starting gig, we'll pay you this, I think that's actually kind of fairly standard practice in the industry. Like, that's not abnormal to me. If you're Sluka, you're really dumb. If you had legitimate offers you passed on, you could have gotten writing to take a chance on this. That's my take. Also, further take, if UNLV really thought this kid was good, like really good, and he's not, he's a 43.8% passer. Most of his completions this year are to guys who UNLV has schemed wide open. They'd find a way to pay him. It's $85K. Do you realize how much a playoff appearance is worth to UNLV, the school? Do you realize how much it is worth to like offensive coordinator Brennan Marion? Do you realize that their head coach, Barry Odom, who's probably going to try to get a P5 job again, how much that would be worth? Like, you find a way to either have your collective or somebody pays the collective and the collective pays the kid. If this kid is really the reason you're winning and he's not, you find a way to get him paid, even if he's a total pain in the ass.
What I'm hearing is the kid went to Vegas and didn't come home with nearly as much money as he was expecting.
Yeah.
Both sides look bad. No disagreement there. If UNLV made promises and didn't keep them because either A, they weren't actual promises, or B, they've just decided they don't want to keep them, or maybe, as we have sometimes seen, you make a promise for NIL money without the money on hand, and then you try to raise it and you don't have it when it comes time to pay the piper. Bad on them. If you agreed to do this, if you're the Sluka family and you don't have a deal in place, that's a mistake on your part, and it sucks, but you did make the mistake. But overall, that's just what this sport is right now, because there is absolutely no regulation on any of this. The NCAA only made these changes because they pretty much had a gun to their head and they had to, but they did it without any kind of preparation. They have yet to do anything. They just sit there and they hope that Congress or somebody else will tell them how to do it for them. And what you end up is situations like this where we're all arguing whether the school's an asshole or if the family's an asshole, which is a really stupid place to be, because UNLV is off to a good start. And UNLV is in the running for the Mountain West Conference title. It is in the running for a playoff berth. But we're stuck talking about this, and it sucks.
Do you think that UNLV will get a bad reputation in the marketplace coming out of this?
If these reports are true that he was promised a certain amount and they didn't come up or they didn't pay him, then absolutely. That's why there's very much a PR battle taking place. And some people in the media are getting worked over because that's how you float stories and that's how you get people to take your side. The most recent reporting from Thamel and others is that, hey, there was a verbal agreement that was, agreed to, that he showed up. He was only given this $3,000 or the stipend, the removing cost, and that was it. And then if you're UNLV, I absolutely think it hurts your reputation in the portal market. Like, oh, well, I better get that money up front. You know, like if I was a player that was going there, and if you're not, then you're probably going to get crushed. And you think negative recruiting takes place in recruiting? What do you think it is like in the portal market? Like, absolutely, they're going to get crushed.
Well, we've got rumors and murmurs about certain programs, and like, I heard the checks weren't cashing. And, like I probably think that might be a coin flip in terms of how often, that's actually worked out. But yeah, this is not new in terms of that.
Totally. And there are other situations across college football that have not gone public yet, but I think might and could impact the playoff race and the national championship race if they're true. And because I don't have details on them, I'm not going to discuss them here yet. But like there are certain guys who are listed as hurt right now who may be hurt, but maybe not quite as hurt as they are claiming to be. So maybe there's some ongoing disputes there and just some situations I can tell you we're all monitoring across the sport. So like this verbal stuff happens a lot. There are a lot of situations where guys are not getting what they are represented to get in terms of verbally. It's also like not crazy uncommon that they don't get exactly what they signed for. That's a little bit less common. So like I'm saying, it's not rare that you have the verbal offer. But what I am saying, if you have a lot of options, somebody's going to give it to you in writing.
Right.
And you should take that. Like either Sluka, his brother, is not being honest that he had real offers elsewhere, or the UNLV, I'm just trying to do like cost benefit analysis here, or the UNLV verbal offer was way more to the upside than he could have gotten in writing from somewhere else, right? And thus, if he won the job, he thought he was really going to cash in. Like to me, $100K for a guy that's a 43.8% passer is egregiously high. But that's just my personal opinion of it.
Well, that would explain the offer Braden Fowler-Nicolosi got, though.
Right. Man. I'm also I will share this. I spoke with a couple other personnel people, and the feelings as to who was a better player between Sluka and Hajj Malik Williams, it was pretty split. There were a good number who actually preferred Malik Williams. And they're like, I don't think this is a downgrade for UNLV, with the lone exception that it is kind of a pain in the ass to change what your offense is doing in the middle of game week when you got to go play a pretty buttoned up Fresno State team. But Malik Williams is a much better passer than Sluka is. So we'll see. I do feel bad for the kid that, he clearly committed there based on representations, but he should have got in writing.
And like so there's two sides. UNLV is getting dragged for not paying. He's getting dragged. Like what a quitter from like the old school college football mindset of, oh, how could you bail on your teammates when every single one of us, if we were promised X amount of dollars to work here on Cover 3 for CBS Sports and, 3 months in, we weren't getting paychecks, we'd probably all do the exact same thing. So like,
I worked without a contract on this show for like 3 months. Right. And you know what? CBS took care of me. Would I have worked in the fall without a contract? No. I would have done the holdout thing. Like, at a certain point, you gotta go. But like over summer, I worked without
a contract. You guys get paid?
There is a bit of like a good faith thing here. So to your point, like, will their assistants who are involved with this get a negative reputation based off this? If more details come out that prove that Sluka's side is correct, then yes, they will.
And then this is where I think like the need for regulation, it's not only to protect one side, it's to protect all sides. Like, and that's the thing, I think, because some people say, oh, you're pro player or you're pro university or you're pro school or whatever it is. No, I'm pro getting a system where you can keep track and that stuff like this doesn't happen. And there have been other examples. One of the biggest ironies in this is that one of the other situations where a player, quote, quit on his team so he could go prepare at his next spot was Mikey Keene, who didn't play in the conference championship game, and he's starting quarterback for Fresno State this weekend against this team. It's kind of wild just the way stuff has worked, and yet it's going to continue to happen until they get some system in place, which I do see a lot of people, online saying this would be really easy. Just make them employees, like give them contracts. And yes, you're right, but my goodness, is it hard to get us there.
It's easy to say it, but like, that means you're coming out your wallet, right?
Yeah.
These guys become employees. Coaches are a lot less valuable. Coaches in the NFL don't make more than the players do. The players are more valuable than the coaches. Once you formalize it, the coaches and the admin are going to make a hell of a lot less money in comparison than the players do over time. So it's easy to say, but it's like, man, it's such a headache, but you get paid to deal with the headache.
Is quarterback the only position that this would happen in right now?
No. I don't think so. It's also notable.
Could happen at wide receiver. Could happen on the
Ricky White
line. Could happen on the offensive line. There's all sorts of positions where it could happen. Chip.
These are very specific mentions that Tom is making, and I concur. I will note, like Ricky White at UNLV, I'm going to assume has like a high 5-figure or low 6-figure deal. I don't have any insider information on that. Just what I think he would get on the open market, and he's not holding out. So I don't think that this is a blanket thing where UNLV is not paying all of their players. I think this, based on what we've seen so far, is a specific case situation.
So I want to point out too, like, to the idea of like quitting on your team. There's a part of me that totally understands where that comes from, because I do think that sucks. But I would understand it more if Matthew Sluka had been on this team for 2 years. He's been on this team for like 3 months. Like, I mean, he showed up to get paid and play with these guys. And if he's not getting paid what he expected to be played, I don't really consider it quitting on your team as much as quitting on these dudes you've known for a couple months now.
Totally. Also, like, let's be clear. It's not like 100,000 is make you rich for life money, but for many people that is life-changing money.
Yes.
Like the ability to have 100K even after you pay your agent and taxes. I mean, let's say you come out with 65, like that could be a decent down payment for like a starter condo, and that could set you up financially to be able to like sock some money away and have some financial freedom. And given Sluka's passing ability, he will be going pro in something other than sports to steal the NCAA line. So he really only has 1 season left of eligibility to make any kind of NIL money. So if he's only making $3,000 a month, I mean, I don't really blame him for doing this if he believed that UNLV was going to pay him 100 if he won the starting job, which he did.
Think of all the people who graduate from college seriously in debt. Now you're a football player, and not only are you getting your school paid for, but you're also going to get like that $100,000 boost. That is, like you said, life-changing money. That is huge for just about anybody. There's not a person who goes to college in the country who wouldn't take that deal in a heartbeat.
Totally.
Did you so I have a question for you, because what do you think he has a landing spot already? Because there's been a lot of speculation.
No.
There's tampering. See, I don't know if he does either, because that would be.
Is Matthew Sluka somebody you tamper for?
That's not really. I don't think so.
Right.
I mean, what P5 program runs a unique enough offense where like the kid who runs a hell of a lot better than he throws, and like legitimately his throwing is, and I'm not trying to just drag the kid here because obviously he won the starting job. They did beat Kansas and they beat Houston, two kind of lower half Big 12 teams with him as a starter. Like they didn't win because of him, but he didn't necessarily cost him the game. And he did run the ball really well. And that guy's tough, man. Like he puts his body on the line. He's taking some kill shots out there.
I love
chat
the
is very funny.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
what P5 team
Michigan,
wants a
they're
running
just
quarterback in
listening.
the chat just immediately
I'm
named
like,
7
okay,
schools.
Michigan,
Auburn, Notre Dame.
I would say like Northwestern, Vandy. I mean, like the kid obviously had the grades to go to Holy Cross. So you got some kind of academics there, I would assume.
Hey, like the great point from Tailgate too. Bob Chesney was hired at James Madison. James Madison had like a total roster rebuild. Like he didn't go with Bob Chesney.
Did they want him?
That's I was, if we're talking about the market value here. So
Right.
When his brother told me they had major P5 and good G5 offers, I immediately started thinking like, from who?
Right.
But he didn't say. So anyway, it was a good combo. I really appreciate him reaching out. If he wants to come back on the show to add any color, we'd gladly have him on.
And also, if we're only dealing with verbal offers, are we also starting to venture into the same world with the Colorado staffer who tried to hit up the Sovereign Wealth Fund? Like, does that count as like I mean, do you have staffers that are reaching out to agents and being like, hey, I've got a pitch deck. Let me show it to you. I made it on PowerPoint 3 hours ago, and I think that you'll like what you see.
I'm going to put something in a private chat that I cannot say on the show yet about that specific thing, but there's more to come on that, and I cannot report it.